Going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. It is about 10:48 a.m. here along the West Coast, and the latest earthquake shows looks like a 1.9 in the Big Island of Hawaii. Earlier, they did see a 4.2 earthquake coming in. Let's go ahead and check out that activity there. On the Big Island, 4.2 coming in just to the north of the Kilauea volcano, and somewhat down there as well, about 18 kilometers deep. Something brewing underneath this area. I've been saying it for a while, and now we're starting to see some deeper movement quakes being recorded well below the area. So 4.0, shaking things up north of Kilauea volcano. Of course, it is still seeing some activity of its own within the crater area. Most of it, I'd say it's below the surface here. These are not really shallow surface quakes. Some of them stretching down there to about 1.3 kilometers below this area. Down here in Pahala, still seeing some activity as well. Of course, it's very typical for swarming. Latest quake shows a 2.0 near Pahala. Now let's go ahead and check out the latest map here on the volcano hazards. See if we got anything new popping off out here around the Kilauea volcano, and of course Mauna Loa, where they both stopped erupting there. The eruption ceased around the 10th, about December 9th, December 10th time frame, about a month ago. Everything still looks as is. The latest information here from Mauna Loa. Actually, we're going to check out Kilauea real quick. This update here was put out on the 31st, so there's actually no new update. This was put out 12/31. So we're going to check out the live seismograph stations and see what we have. Now this station here, I can't really say I agree with because it doesn't show anything. It doesn't show earthquakes. It doesn't show anything at all, aside from just a bunch of lines. And I know what I'm looking for when it comes to earthquakes or volcanic activity. This is more or less what I like to see, but it appears as though that this is yesterday's data. This does not show the 4.0. In fact, if you look here on the timestamp, 1.2 from yesterday. So I'm not for sure what's going on here. Let me zoom in, see if I can find a more recent station, operable station here. That one's not working. It's almost like all these seismograph stations have been turned off or incorrectly adjusted. And I'm not for sure why. I can take some wild guesses, but I better not. 12 hours here. This is still the same data. Today's well into the 3rd. And this is only showing up until about, let's see here, Hawaii time yesterday, about 2 o'clock there. So not for sure. We did have that weird signal showing up again. Covered that on the update last night. This here looks like magma movement underneath the surface here. Earthquakes are going to look more defined like this one. That's not a big one. The bigger ones are going to be a little bit thicker and probably a little bit more prominent here on the map, on the graph. But this here looks like some movement underneath, and we watched this a couple times here show up on these graphs around Kilauea volcano. And now all the data is stopped, and I'm not for sure what's going on here. I'm just going to look around, see if I can find maybe another nearby seismograph station that's operable, but I'm not seeing it. All of them are shut down or old. So what's going on out there on the Big Island? I would like to know. Past 12 hours, still from the 2nd. Yesterday, so all old data kicking off out there. And that's not cool. That's definitely not cool. So let's see if we can find some of these other seismograph stations. Maybe they're more up to date. Nope. It's all old. So something's going on with the network out here. I don't know if it's affecting Mauna Loa's seismograph stations or not, but we'll see. Past 12 hours, that is old as well. So it looks like a system-wide network error occurring out here on the Big Island. with lots of stations being offline, including the ones down in Pahala. A little crazy. All right, so we'll check back on that a little bit later. I wanted to see what the 4.0 looked like out there on the graphs and see if we're still seeing that odd earthquake or odd magma movement underneath. So we'll watch that. So really, right now, we don't even know how many earthquakes are occurring on the Big Island due to the pretty much a data blackout occurring. They're putting them up on the earthquake catalog map here, so something's got to be going on, right? There's somebody reporting them and adding them onto the earthquake map here, but I want to see the raw data myself. That's what I go by. All right, latest earthquake in this region here, Papua New Guinea 5.0, 27 kilometers deep. Seen a bunch of earthquake activity here over the last couple days. This is just the last 24 hours, and still haven't really seen any major uptick along our quiet zones here. And this pretty much between the Papua New Guinea and the Fiji Islands area. This little spot right here, Solomon Islands, is in the area that I'm watching pretty closely for some further large-scale activity. Down here in New Zealand, North Island seen a 5.0. This one coming in, excuse me, just a couple hours ago. I think all the rain here is doing something to my voice. Nothing like a sip of hot coffee won't fix, hopefully. Let's see what we got. Yeah, a couple hours ago, this earthquake came in there to the North Island, New Zealand region. Looks like it was felt pretty broadly across the area, not associated with the Taupo supervolcano, which sits here in the middle, the lake there, but a little bit of activity kicking up. And this earthquake was about 10 kilometers deep. Now, very shallow earthquake for this region. Historical data here out in the North Island, New Zealand area. Of course, the gray-colored earthquakes and the darker color ones are the deep earthquakes. Here's the intensity contour. The level of depthness here below 300 kilometers, between 70 and 300 for the gray ones. And of course, the surface quakes are the white ones, which normally sit upstream here of the subduction zones. This activity here just confirms the subduction level quakes with the gray and the darker color lines as you head further to the west. But this earthquake striking things up out there. Not a whole lot of historical earthquake activity here. North of Walton, south of, it's kind of in that line there. What's this area? Morrinsville? So this area doesn't really see a whole lot of activity here on the map, as far as 4.5 and above goes. So a little oddball quake inland and away from the plate boundary, but not deep. It's a little on the crazy side. We'll watch that. As far as other activity goes, let me bring up the GeoNet servers here. They are the ones that monitor more of the activity that kicks off there in New Zealand. Strong earthquake, 5.1. They have it as a 5.1. 7 kilometers deep, so somewhat consistent there with the USGS. It was felt. The felt reports here, wow, 20,000 felt reports. That's a lot. A few folks reported some extreme shaking from that 5.1. But the majority, looks like about 9,225 reported just some light shaking. So a few folks, about 10 people there, said that this was really rocking and rolling. As far as aftershock activity goes, let me go back over here and see what we're doing. Looks like a couple within that area, 2.7, 2.7, 2.6. And most of those as well are pretty fairly shallow earthquakes. So we'll watch that area. Again, it's just an odd earthquake, well away from the plate boundary, and not the deep kind that I would expect to see in that area. The I'm sure it showed up pretty nicely across the volcanic drums here, which it did very nicely. That's going to be the 5-pointer or 5.1 that the GeoNet servers are reporting. Again, that just kicked up a couple hours ago. It doesn't look like it's done anything to any of the volcanoes anywhere. Of course, Timothy in here, mod and a member, would be able to chime in more on if this is associated with any volcano activity out there. Let me see what we got here for. Let's go back to New Zealand. New Zealand, beautiful area, I'm sure. One of these days, I want to go down there. Satellite image here. Just want to see where this is at as far as the topography of the map goes. Out in the field. Not for sure what they're growing out there. Maybe, I don't know. Something green. So I don't see any volcanoes out here. Any odd as far as like the readings here on the map, I just don't see anything nearby that would indicate a volcano nearby. But yeah, just kind of an oddball quake there in New Zealand. Go back down here. Yeah, these guys are reporting a 5.0. See if this has been reviewed or not. It has been reviewed. Yes, it has. Oh, yeah. It's not Monday. Don't even start. Monday was it was a crazy day. I had my computer shutting off and doing all sorts of weird stuff. A lot of electronics acting all crazy. Alarms going off all at once. And headaches on top of that. So I thought I was going to experience an earthquake last night. But no, we didn't. Maybe it's still coming. All right. Well, let's move on here. We'll definitely watch that. New Zealand really hasn't caught up too much in terms of the larger scale activity that we're looking for. If you remember back in December, end of November as well, we've seen all those sixes and sevens up here. And some over here around Papua New Guinea as well. I think we maybe seen a 5 or so up here along the Kermadec Trench, but hardly any moderate to large earthquake activity that would be expected here following all that movement for New Zealand. So it's just an area that's obviously prone to earthquakes, and it's definitely could be coming up. A little bit of earthquake activity down in the Balleny Islands area. This is a fracture zone, couple different fracture zones near the Pacific and the Antarctica Ridge. Plate boundary here. Balleny Island sits over here, and let's see here. Both of these earthquakes struck within about an hour or two of each other. And prior to the earthquake up here in New Zealand, these divergent boundaries, the separation of the seafloor, so to speak, is could ultimately apply further strain up here. And that could be the reason we're seeing the activity there just a short time later into the area of North Island, New Zealand, which would put the Alpine Fault and other areas on the South Island even more underneath the strain of the dynamics out here. So we'll watch that. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and it's on a broad scale currently, but there's certain areas that have not shown any sufficient movement in quite a while. And of course, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench here is one of them. We've seen a 5-pointer out here yesterday, but man, that's about it. It's a major strain area, major subduction zone level. All right, let's see what else we got. Philippines. Let's see here. There's that 5.0. Papua New Guinea. 4.6. Yeah, most of this activity from today all down south. We did have one just after, right about 4 o'clock in the morning, a 5.0 along the Philippine Trench. 57 kilometers deep. Over here around the Andaman Sea, this one here from yesterday, about ready to drop off. We have noticed a dropping off of earthquake activity far as the westward pressure movement goes. Now look at the EMSC model here, pretty much confirms that as well. There's only a handful of quakes, some of those from yesterday as well, throughout the Mediterranean region. 5.6 in the Atlantic Ocean coming in right now. Central Mid-Atlantic Ridge. A couple different fracture zones. Looks like it may be on the close to the St. Paul fracture zone area. Seen some up here last night too, up into the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Yesterday afternoon, 5.2 and a 4.9. So things unzipping out here in certain divergent boundaries, which will ultimately move the plates around further. So I think that could add to some earthquake uptick here very soon. Around the Middle America Trench, got some activity off the coast of El Salvador and Nicaragua. Well, both of these from early this morning, about 5 and 6 o'clock this morning time period. One into the Middle America Trench, somewhat deep, about 57 kilometers there for that 4.2. Over here around Puerto Rico, been watching a swarm of activity as well. Looks like the majority of that, though, was from yesterday, so things tapering off slightly. The latest of 1.7 in our swarming area here on the southwestern edge of Puerto Rico. South America region, with all this activity around it, should be showing some further activity and uptick very soon. Let me see what we got. Not a whole lot far as newer earthquake activity goes into the South America region. Some 4s from yesterday, and it looks like there was a 4.8 off the coast of Chile. It's going to be this earthquake right here. And the West Chile rise about 2 o'clock in the morning for that 4.8 near the Valdivia fracture zone. All right, see what we got here for the states. Look what's happening out here in, what do we got? Georgia. Earthquake country out in Georgia, 2.3 coming in. Let's see, nobody felt it. No felt reports. Must not be a populated region, because most of the time a 2.3 will be felt by folks. But then again, it was somewhat early in the morning there. Let me see the exact time stamp. But, well, 7 o'clock. Alrighty, nothing going on across the New Madrid zone. Texas activity from yesterday. There's a little bit of activity occurring up in Yellowstone National Park currently now. It's not showing here on the map, but I do want to show you guys real quick some of this activity occurring around the northwest corner of the park. A couple of these earthquakes here from this morning and overnight time period. And some of these are gaining in the magnitude. Got to be at least 1.5, possibly slightly larger for this area. Maybe a 1.7. Now it is showing up around certain areas of the local seismograph station group here, but not so much over here along the eastern section of the park or southern. And that tells me right there that this is generally around the 1.5 range. But indeed earthquake activity and not being reported out here on the USGS map for the all magnitudes. Now up in Washington, did see some activity around the Mount St. Helens area yesterday, and it looks like it is continuing today. So I'm going to pull up the tremor map that shows, well, at least a PNSN network. This was a tremor, by the way, 248 epicenters of tremor along the Cascadia north and south sections. And the Mount St. Helens readings here. Yesterday we had a couple quakes up here around the eastern flank of Mount St. Helens. Today the activity is more confined to the crater area. So let's see what we have. Nothing big going on, but there's a couple more earthquakes than we've seen in a little bit. Maybe. Perhaps. Well, I don't know why the PNSN network's slow. But there they are. Not a big earthquake whatsoever. Remember, those are some very small microquakes. The largest one looks to be a 0.6. That one's right up smack dab at the crater area at 0818. So 0818 here on this timestamp is going to be roughly about here prior to that 1620. And that's definitely not a big earthquake whatsoever. But it is showing up here on the graph. And of course, yesterday we've seen a little bit of activity as well here. Notice that very small movement. Either way, just a slight uptick there. Mount St. Helens. The rest of the volcanoes look calm and clear. Over here around the, well, we've got another volcano here showing a little bit of activity outside of the Bend, Oregon area. Down here in the Newberry volcano region. Looks like a 0.5 and a 0.4. Had a 0.5 here about 10 o'clock this morning. So let's jump back over here and see what the Newberry volcano is doing. These are all seismograph stations there across the area. And it's pretty cool. The pnsnnetwork.org has a wide array of different types of readings, seismographs, and whatnot that you can check out at various faults and also volcanoes. Now, I'm guessing that's going to be it. Hidden behind all the seismic data here, there's not a whole lot of earthquake activity that I can see here in the mix. It looks a little on the overblown side. I'm not for certain if we got any other readings or seismograph stations in this area that we can look at. What's going on here? Getting lost in the World Wide Web. Do people still call it the World Wide Web? All right, let's see. What else? Let's check out this seismograph. Maybe we can see a little bit better. Newberry borehole NN19. There it is. A little bit better reading. Notice the lines are not blown out and drowning out any type of seismic data that occurs. It's actually a pretty nice looking graph here. So there's that little earthquake, and the previous day image not found, but either way, it doesn't look like there's too much activity occurring around that volcano either. Northern California, looks like we did have a 2.1, 1.9 up here in the area that's seen that 6.4 and also the 5.4. Hold on a second here. I don't know why I keep clicking on that. Just want to check the live data. Things look pretty calm and clear across both of the Northern California stations, Petrolia and Dinsmore. Pretty calm. Over here around Greenville, seen a couple more earthquakes last night, 2.3, 3.0, and a 2.4. All over the place there as far as the depth goes. Now this sits to the south of Mount Lassen. Nothing showing up here around Mount Lassen. This activity is well south of there, not associated with it. But keep an eye on it. The rest of California, let's see here. Long Valley supervolcano. This from yesterday, the swarm, little bitty tiny swarm that we were seeing here yesterday kind of died off. Nothing to report today. And the Ridgecrest area, just some very minimal activity. Most of that from yesterday. Southern California, about the same. Not a whole lot of movement, but we'll keep an eye on these faults as we have a tremendous amount of rainfall coming in to the west coast, Northern California area. So we'll watch some of these other faults. We get a lot of rainfall down there lubricating some of the stress built up. It could create slip and cause an earthquake. So we'll watch that pretty closely. A little bit of movement near the Trident volcano area. Here's Trident over here. A little bit of activity stretching across this mountain range. Nothing big, just some very small microquakes there in Alaska. Let's see here. One little earthquake, Pahala 2.0. So yeah, I'm not for sure what's going on with all those seismographs being offline, showing old data. It's just not cool. I don't think they're having any major weather over there that would cause that. Just a little odd. So hopefully they get that back up and running, as it's pretty important to pay attention to the data that's occurring and the earthquake activity and possibly that magma movement occurring on some of those maps. All right, space weather activity. We had a long duration event, not on the Earth side, but on the far side of the sun. The looks like that may have been a pretty significant explosion. Notice that it's drawn out significantly. Let's see what we got here. There it is. Looks like a large eruption of plasma is visible following an event behind the east limb early Tuesday morning. This looks to be responsible for the rise in X-ray background levels. That's that little not sharp, but long duration event that I showed you guys. An active sunspot region is likely responsible for this, and we will get a look at the source region later this week. So we'll watch it and see how it goes. Current sunspot activity here looks to be decaying for most of these sunspots. I still think 3080 up here is looking somewhat. Let's see, did they update this now? Oh yeah, it's back online. The SDO is back online. So the most recent image here, for a while, for like a week, it was only showing activity from the 28th of December. So this here is the most recent from the SDO, the official site there with NASA, showing the most recent. I love this. And this even looks more less active, I should say. A lot of decaying happening here at these sunspots. So not a whole lot of potential with any of these currently from that latest image. This one here is a little bit older than the latest one from the SDO, and it obviously showed some degrading even since then. Right now they're saying a 90% chance for a C flare and 35% chance for an M flare. X flare at 5. I think these are a little bit high, but maybe they haven't got to them yet. And our expected coronal hole wind stream event will be here around the January 4th, January 5th time frame here in a couple days, as we look for some elevated conditions there with the KP index that could create some auroras for the lucky folks up there in the higher latitudes. Right now, things are fairly minimal. No major event currently occurring. Alrighty, folks. Have a good day. I am going to jump off here. I think a little bit later on this afternoon, I'm going to be covering just a weather-related video in regards to the West Coast activity. I'll take a look at some snowpack percentages, lake levels, reservoir percentages as well, and some river stages. We did reach into the, well, not flooding stage here along the Sacramento River, but the, it was the action stage. So when the action stage kicks in, there's a couple different things they can do to minimize that. But either way, we'll take a look at that a little bit later on this afternoon. Thinking about doing just a complete update on that. Strictly West Coast storm related. Looks like there was a 3.6 down here as well into the Kermadec Trench. Pretty deep earthquake, an older one. Yeah, I kind of missed that. Didn't see it on the GeoNet servers. Either way, just stay safe out there in New Zealand and the rest of the world here. A lot going on here with this plate activity right now. Alrighty, folks, have a good one. We'll catch you guys a little bit later on this afternoon or tonight. We'll see you guys. Stay safe out there.